in the hope that somebody will come along and say, there's money in this, let's support Meghan and her as ever brand. I thought she behaved so badly, and Harry too.
What if the moment that truly ended Meghan's place inside the British royal family had nothing to do with a Netflix deal, a tell-all interview, or a transatlantic move to California? What if it happened much earlier, in the quiet corridors of a palace?
For weeks, royal watchers have been watching tensions quietly simmer beneath the surface of the royal family. But no one expected the latest explosion to come from Sophie's explosive remarks, which went viral across the world. As the comments spread, Meghan is reportedly left panicking as fresh waves of speculation begin to build, dragging old tensions back into the spotlight. And what happens next could make the situation even worse than anyone anticipated, raising serious questions about what is really going on behind palace doors. And what comment do you think Sophie made about Meghan? What could be so ecstatic about it? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. To help us create more videos and uncover the latest royal drama, please subscribe. Quiet Bonds Within Royal Life. Meghan Markle's connection with Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, is often described as one of the quieter and more subtle relationships within the British royal family. It is not marked by public attention, arguments, or dramatic headlines, but rather by calm respect, shared understanding, and similar life experiences that naturally link their paths together. From the beginning of Meghan's journey into royal life, Sophie was seen by many observers as someone who could offer a sense of stability. Sophie has long been known within royal circles for her calm personality and steady approach to royal duties. Because of this, she was often viewed as someone who understood the challenges of entering the monarchy from the outside and adapting to its strict traditions and expectations. One of the strongest connections between Meghan and Sophie is their shared background as independent working women before marriage. Sophie worked in public relations and even ran her own business, building a professional life in the private sector. Meghan, on the other hand, had a successful acting career and became internationally recognized through the television series Suits. Both women experienced life as independent professionals with their own identities, careers, and ambitions before stepping into royal roles. This shared transition, leaving behind personal careers to take on royal responsibilities, created an unspoken bond between them. There were even reports suggesting that Queen Elizabeth II saw Sophie as a helpful guide for Meghan during her early days in the royal family. The idea was that Sophie could quietly support Meghan, helping her understand royal customs, expectations, and day-to-day responsibilities. However, it has also been reported that Meghan did not fully engage with this informal guidance, instead relying more closely on Prince Harry as she adjusted to royal life. Even with this, the relationship between Meghan and Sophie has generally been described as warm and respectful. There has been no public sign of conflict between them, and their interactions have often appeared polite and composed. They have been seen together at major royal events, including solemn occasions such as Queen Elizabeth II's funeral ceremonies, where members of the royal family came together in shared grief and duty. In these moments, Meghan and Sophie were observed in close proximity, reflecting a sense of unity within the family during important public duties. Many royal watchers point out that Meghan and Sophie share similar life pressures, both married into the royal family, rather than being born into it, which meant learning its traditions from the inside. Both have also faced strong media attention, sometimes intense and critical, which comes with being part of the monarchy. This shared experience of living under constant public scrutiny is often seen as something that naturally links them, even if they are not publicly close. Another quiet connection between them is motherhood. Sophie is the mother of Lady Louise Windsor and James, Viscount Severn, while Meghan has two children, Archie and Lilibet. Raising children while living under public attention is a challenge both women understand deeply. This shared responsibility adds another layer of mutual understanding between them. Overall, while Meghan and Sophie are not known for a publicly close friendship, their relationship is best described as respectful, calm, and grounded in shared experience. It is a connection built not on public displays or personal closeness, but on quiet understanding, similar journeys, and the unique pressures of life within the royal family. What has brought Sophie to make explosive comments about Meghan? Under what conditions did she make such comments? Let's look into the details of the viral storm that returned from the past. Old clips, new royal storm. A fresh online debate has emerged as old royal clips featuring Meghan Markle, Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, and members of the British royal family resurface across social media. Rather than focusing on new developments, users are revisiting past interviews and public appearances, searching for hidden meanings in moments once considered ordinary. By replaying videos and examining subtle details, such as facial expressions, tone of voice, pauses, and wording, many believe they are uncovering clues to a larger story. This shift in perspective has transformed forgotten footage into the center of a rapidly growing and evolving discussion. In this digital environment, nothing feels simple anymore. A short clip that once lasted a few seconds can now turn into hours of debate. One comment section leads to another, and soon entire threads are built around interpreting what someone may have meant, how they looked while speaking, or what was not said at all. At the heart of much of this renewed attention is the steady presence of Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh. Her past interviews and public appearances are being shared widely again, often described by users as calm, measured, and carefully spoken. Some online observers now point to her manner as a contrast to the more emotional or highly discussed moments involving other royal figures. Because of this, her words and expressions are being revisited repeatedly as people try to understand whether there is more meaning hidden in her calm delivery. Meanwhile, Meghan Markle remains a central figure in the broader conversation. Her past royal journey, public statements, and media appearances continue to be re-examined in detail. For many online users, she represents a key part of the larger story they believe is unfolding beneath the surface of royal history. As these discussions grow, Buckingham Palace is also pulled into the conversation, not through new announcements, but through association with the royal family and the long-standing public interest in its members. Even without fresh statements, the institution remains a backdrop to the way people interpret these resurfaced clips. What makes this moment so unusual is its foundation in reinterpretation rather than revelation. Nothing new has been officially revealed. Instead, old memories are being reshaped by new opinions. The past is being replayed through a modern lens, where every detail is open to debate and every silence feels meaningful. In this way, history is not staying still. It is being rewatched, reinterpreted, and reimagined in real time by a global audience, searching for meaning in moments that were once thought to be already understood. What are the comments that have sent the internet into chaos? What could the statements mean? Let's dive into the details of the 4 words that changed the conversation. Words that ignite global debate. A seemingly ordinary remark from Sophie, "We all tried to help," has become the focus of intense online debate. Though calm and unremarkable at first glance, the statement gained new significance as old interviews resurfaced. Its growing popularity highlights how the internet can transform simple words into powerful talking points and competing interpretations. Once the clip resurfaced, those 4 words began to take on a life of their own. People started sharing them across social media platforms, replaying the short segment again and again. It was cut into short videos, placed under dramatic music, and reposted with different captions that gave it new meaning depending on the viewer's opinion. For some people, the phrase became meaningful proof that efforts were made behind palace doors to support certain individuals during difficult times. They saw it as a quiet admission that help was offered, even if it was not always visible to the public. To them, the words carried weight, like a hidden piece of confirmation finally brought into the light. For others, however, the reaction was very different. They believed the phrase was being stretched too far. In their view, it was simply a general statement, something people say when referring to shared responsibility in a broad sense. They argued that it was unfair to turn a casual comment into something loaded with hidden meaning or secret messages. What made the situation even more intense was the timing of its return to public attention. Around the same period, discussions about royal relationships, especially those involving Prince Harry and Meghan, were already resurfacing. Conversations about their departure from royal duties had begun trending again, bringing old debates back into the spotlight. Because of this renewed interest, Sophie's short and calm sentence did not remain isolated. Instead, it was pulled into a much larger emotional conversation that people were already having. It became connected, fairly or unfairly, to questions about loyalty, truth, misunderstanding, and who supported whom behind closed doors. Once that connection was made, the internet did what it always does best. It kept digging. People searched for the full interview, examined body language, compared timelines, and debated the meanings word by word. A simple sentence that once passed quietly in the background was now placed under a global microscope, carrying interpretations far beyond its original moment. And so, what began as just 4 ordinary words slowly turned into a symbol of something much bigger, shaped not only by what was said, but by how the world chose to hear it. What made the controversy spread so wide? Could it be due to the way she naturally speaks? Let's dig into the details of the calm delivery of Sophie as against Meghan's emotional narrative. Clash of communication styles. The controversy gained momentum not only because of what was said, but how it was delivered. Sophie's calm, measured, and disciplined communication style has drawn significant attention, with many viewers interpreting her steady tone, careful choice of words, and composed demeanor as signs of credibility, thoughtfulness, and quiet strength in handling sensitive matters. On the other side, Meghan's public interviews, especially her widely discussed conversation with Oprah Winfrey, presented a very different style of communication. In that interview and others like it, she expressed her experiences more emotionally and openly. Her tone sometimes reflected sadness, frustration, and vulnerability. She spoke in a way that felt personal and expressive, sharing feelings as well as events. For many viewers, this made her appear more human and relatable, as she did not hide her emotions while telling her story. When people compare these two approaches online, the reactions often become divided. In social media discussions and edited video clips, Sophie's calm and steady tone is sometimes placed next to Meghan's more emotional storytelling. These comparisons have led audiences to draw very different conclusions depending on what they value most in communication. For some people, Sophie's controlled manner is seen as a sign of reliability. They believe that staying calm under pressure shows maturity, discipline, and trustworthiness. In their view, a reserved delivery makes a speaker seem more credible because it suggests careful thought rather than emotional reaction. To them, less emotion means more objectivity. However, others strongly disagree with this interpretation. They argue that Meghan's openness is a form of honesty, not weakness. From their perspective, showing emotion while speaking about personal pain can be a sign of courage. They believe that vulnerability helps reveal truth, especially when discussing difficult life experiences. For this group, emotional expression adds depth and sincerity, rather than reducing credibility. This disagreement has created a wider debate about how people judge sincerity in general. Should truth be measured by calmness and control, or by openness and emotional transparency? The answer is not simple because both styles influence audiences in different ways. As a result, the conversation has moved beyond the individuals themselves. It has become a reflection of how modern audiences interpret communication. Some trust calm delivery more, while others trust emotional expression more. Instead of reaching a shared understanding, the contrast between these styles has widened the divide in opinion. It shows that in today's world, how something is said can sometimes matter just as much as what is said. Was there another factor that intensified the reaction from the public? Which old clips reinforced the public's reaction? Let's find out what happened in the Commonwealth Day footage and the power of seconds. Resurfaced footage sparks new debate. A fresh wave of online discussion has been triggered by old video clips from the 2020 Commonwealth Day service, an event that brought together members of the royal family in a formal public setting. What was once just a routine ceremonial appearance is now being revisited years later, with renewed attention and intense curiosity. Short moments from the footage have resurfaced across social media platforms, where users are replaying, slowing down, and zooming in on small interactions that originally passed without much notice. These clips, lasting only a few seconds each, are now being examined as if they contain hidden meaning or unspoken messages. One particular moment has attracted the most attention. In the clip, Sophie appears to turn toward Meghan with a calm, composed expression. Shortly after, Meghan is seen looking away. This brief exchange, which likely lasted only a moment in real time, has now become the center of wide interpretation online. Different viewers have reacted in very different ways. Some people believe the body language in the clip suggests emotional distance. They describe the interaction as cool, formal, or even slightly tense. To them, the lack of visible warmth in that moment seems significant, and they treat it as a clue about the nature of the relationship between the two women at that time. However, many others strongly challenge this interpretation. They argue that the event itself was highly formal, with strict royal protocol guiding behavior, posture, and expressions. In such settings, individuals are expected to remain composed, reserved, and careful in how they present themselves in public. From this perspective, reading deep emotional meaning into a brief glance or a neutral expression may not be accurate or fair. They also point out that public appearances like the Commonwealth Day service are not casual social gatherings. They are carefully choreographed occasions where attention is often divided, interactions are brief, and participants are aware of cameras from multiple angles. In such environments, even ordinary movements can be easily misunderstood when taken out of context. Despite these explanations, the footage continues to circulate widely. Many versions are now edited, slowed down, zoomed in, or looped repeatedly to highlight specific frames. This editing style often gives the impression that something important is happening in every small gesture, encouraging viewers to search for deeper meaning. As a result, what was once a simple moment in a long public ceremony has taken on a new life online. It is now part of a larger narrative that people continue to debate, interpret, and reinterpret. For some, it is just an example of how easily body language can be misunderstood. For others, it has become a symbolic moment that fits into their broader views about relationships within the royal circle. In the end, this renewed attention shows how modern audiences often revisit old footage with new questions, new opinions, and new emotions, turning brief public moments into long-lasting talking points. How did the royal palace handle the situation? Was the monarchy's reaction fruitful? Let's delve into the details of the silence that came from the palace and the space it leaves behind. Silence fuels public speculation cycle. As speculation continues to rise and spread across social media and news commentary, one element has quietly taken center stage: silence. Not the kind of silence that simply means no one is speaking, but a more powerful kind. Official silence from Buckingham Palace in response to the renewed wave of public discussion. Despite the growing attention and the constant circulation of old clips, comments, and interpretations online, Buckingham Palace has not issued any direct response. There has been no statement to confirm, deny, or clarify the meanings people are attaching to the resurfaced material. In the same way, there has been no public effort to correct the many interpretations being built from short video clips or selective quotes taken out of their original context. This absence of communication has not gone unnoticed. In fact, it has become one of the most discussed aspects of the situation itself. Where people expected clarity, they instead found quiet. And in that quiet space, something interesting has happened. Assumptions have started to grow. Different observers have tried to explain this silence in different ways. Some believe it is intentional and strategic. From this point of view, not responding is a way of avoiding unnecessary attention. In today's fast-moving online world, even a small statement can sometimes increase interest rather than reduce it. So, silence may be seen as a method of not adding fuel to the fire, allowing the public conversation to slowly lose energy on its own. Others, however, see the silence differently. They suggest that it may not only be about strategy, but also about letting public opinion take its natural course. From this angle, the lack of official comment allows people to think freely and form their own judgments without being guided or influenced by formal messaging. In this sense, silence becomes a kind of space where public perception is allowed to develop on its own. But this silence has also produced an unexpected effect. Instead of bringing calm or closure, it has created more room for interpretation. And when interpretation grows without clear boundaries, it often begins to replace facts. People start to fill in gaps with personal opinions, assumptions, and emotional reactions. Small details become bigger stories. Unclear moments become evidence for different claims. Over time, this leads to a situation where meaning is no longer fixed. Without official clarification, there is no single accepted version of events. Instead, there are many competing versions, each shaped by what individuals believe, feel, or want to see. In this kind of environment, certainty becomes fragile. What seems clear to one person may feel completely different to another. And as more voices add their own interpretations, the original facts, whatever they may be, can become harder to separate from opinion. In the end, the silence itself becomes the loudest part of the conversation, not because it says something directly, but because it leaves so much unsaid that people cannot help but try to fill in the gaps. What image does Sophie represent in the royal family? What do people think of her person as a royal? Let's dig into the details of how Sophie appears to be a symbol rather than just a person. The making of a modern symbol. As conversations around Sophie continue to grow, her public image is no longer limited to that of a single royal personality. She is increasingly being placed inside a much wider cultural discussion, where people are not only talking about her actions, but also what she seems to represent in the public imagination. For many of her supporters, Sophie has come to stand for qualities like stability, patience, and steady loyalty within the royal system. They often point to her long years of quiet work, showing up for engagements, supporting charities, and maintaining a low-profile but consistent presence. To them, she is someone who has not rushed for attention or drama. Instead, she is seen as a figure who has grown into her role slowly and steadily over time. In this view, her value lies in her discipline, her calm nature, and her ability to remain committed without seeking constant spotlight or public applause. However, not everyone agrees with this positive framing. Critics argue that the growing admiration for Sophie in online spaces can sometimes feel larger than reality. From this perspective, her rising visibility is not only the result of her own work, but also shaped by how social media and online commentary selectively highlight certain clips, interviews, and moments. Short videos are often edited, shared, and repeated in ways that can make a person appear more significant or symbolic than they might be in everyday royal duties. In this sense, some people believe her current popularity is being boosted by internet trends rather than a full understanding of her long-term role. Because of these two different viewpoints, Sophie now exists in what can be described as a split public image. On one side, she is seen as a model of calm strength within the royal family system. In this version of her image, she represents order, loyalty, and quiet dedication, someone who supports the institution without creating controversy. On the other side, she is viewed more carefully, even skeptically, as a figure who is being used in online discussions mainly as a comparison point. In this version, she is less of a central royal character and more of a reference point in debates about other royals, media bias, and public perception. What is important is that neither of these images fully replaces the other. They both exist at the same time, overlapping and shifting depending on who is watching and how the information is being presented. Her identity in the public eye is therefore not fixed. It is shaped by interpretation, emotion, and the nature of online sharing, rather than by one clear or agreed-upon meaning. In the end, this symbolic transformation shows something larger than just one individual. It reveals how modern audiences can take a few old interviews, a few public appearances, and combine them into a global conversation. Over time, these small pieces of content grow into larger narratives, turning familiar public figures into symbols that mean different things to different people. What can be said of Meghan's experience in the palace? Can the conflicting narrations from different quarters possibly be synergized? Let's dive into the details of the competing stories of support, isolation, and interpretation. Competing truths, shared narratives. At the heart of this ongoing debate is a much deeper and more difficult question. What actually took place during Meghan's time as a working member of the royal family? For those who support Meghan, Her time in the royal household is often described as a period marked by loneliness, intense pressure, and emotional struggle. They believe she entered an environment that was already highly structured and traditional, and that adjusting to it came with significant personal cost. From this view, Meghan's experience was shaped by feeling out of place, overwhelmed by expectations, and unsupported during a major life transition. On the other side, critics are less certain that the full picture has been fairly or completely told. They question whether the public has been given all the necessary details to understand what truly happened behind palace walls. In their view, there may be important parts of the story that were never fully shared or were interpreted differently depending on who is speaking. Into this already divided conversation, a past remark by Sophie has recently resurfaced. The comment, "We all tried to help," has now become part of the wider discussion, taking on a meaning far beyond its original moment. For some people, this statement is seen as a quiet but important clue. They interpret it as evidence that there were internal efforts to support Meghan, suggesting that help was offered during her adjustment period, even if it was not publicly visible. However, others strongly disagree with that interpretation. They argue that Sophie's words should not be treated as direct evidence about Meghan's experience. Instead, they see the comment as a general reflection, possibly referring to the normal support systems within the institution rather than any specific situation. From this perspective, it is unfair to attach too much weight to a brief and broad statement. Because there is no single verified or officially confirmed meaning behind the remark, both sides continue to interpret it in ways that support their own understanding of events. Each group builds a narrative that fits the larger picture they already believe to be true, selecting the same piece of information but drawing different conclusions from it. This is where the discussion shifts into something more complex than simple disagreement over facts. It becomes a battle over interpretation. What one person sees as clear evidence, another may see as irrelevant or misunderstood. The same words can carry different meanings depending on perspective, emotion, and prior belief. At this stage, the debate is no longer only about what happened, it is also about what those events are believed to mean. And meaning, unlike fixed facts, is flexible. It can shift, stretch, and be reshaped depending on who is telling the story and why they are telling it. That is why this topic continues to spark interest and division. The facts may be limited, but the interpretations are many, and each one adds another layer to an already complicated narrative. Which perspective seems to have captured the minds of the majority? Could this be the reality, or what people accept as the reality? Let's take a look at the internet machine and how old clips become the new truth when virality rewrites reality. Digital platforms have transformed how people interpret events and public figures. Today, brief video clips often spread faster than complete interviews or reports, shaping public opinion and memory. As a result, many people form conclusions based on limited content rather than the full context. In this kind of environment, repetition becomes extremely powerful. When a clip is shared again and again across different platforms, it starts to feel more believable simply because it is everywhere. People begin to assume that something must be true if they keep seeing it repeated, even when important context is missing. What was once a small moment taken out of a longer conversation can slowly grow into a widely accepted version of the truth, shaped more by sharing than by facts. This is exactly what has happened with certain interview moments involving Sophie. Over time, short clips from her interviews have been shared with emotional captions, dramatic background music, and strong personal opinions added on top. Some versions are slowed down to make expressions seem more intense. Others are edited side by side with different clips to suggest comparisons or hidden meanings. Each of these editing choices changes how the moment feels, even if the original words have not changed. The result is that the clips carry a much heavier emotional weight than they originally had. A simple or neutral statement can begin to look serious, tense, or even controversial once it is placed in a new edited context. Viewers who come across these versions may not realize that what they are seeing is only a small piece of a much larger picture. At the same time, social media platforms are designed in a way that rewards attention rather than accuracy. The algorithms that control what people see are built to promote content that gets strong reactions, such as anger, surprise, sadness, or excitement. They do not always prioritize whether something is fully true or fairly presented. Instead, they push forward what keeps people watching, clicking, and sharing. Because of this system, users are no longer just passive viewers of royal stories or public interviews. They are actively involved in reshaping those stories as they spread. Every time someone reposts a clip, they may add their own opinion or emotional reaction. Every comment section adds new interpretations. Every reaction video introduces another layer of meaning, whether accurate or not. Over time, this creates a situation where the original context of a moment becomes harder and harder to recover. The short viral version spreads widely, while the full interview or complete story is often ignored or forgotten. Eventually, many people know only the edited version, not the original. In this way, digital culture does not just share information, it quietly rebuilds it, piece by piece, until the viral version feels like the only version that matters. Is there any official verdict that can lay the matter to rest? Will this be left to die down naturally? Let's talk about the unresolved story that is still unfolding. Perception shapes an unfinished story. What keeps this situation alive and constantly discussed is the fact that it never truly reaches a final ending. There is no official statement that clearly settles the claims circulating online, and no single explanation has been accepted by everyone as the absolute truth. Because of this, the story remains open, unfinished, and always ready for new interpretations. Even without closure, the conversation does not slow down. Instead, it continues to shift and grow as more people join in, share opinions, and re-examine old clips in new ways. Each wave of attention seems to add another layer, rather than bringing clarity. Over time, what people think they know keeps changing depending on what they have recently seen or heard. For some viewers, the calm and composed public presence of Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, is now seen as a sign of quiet strength and steady control. Her tone and behavior are often interpreted as thoughtful and grounded, especially when compared with more emotionally expressive narratives in the wider discussion. This has led some people to view her as a stabilizing figure in the broader public imagination. At the same time, many others continue to focus on the personal accounts and emotional experiences shared by Meghan Markle. For them, her perspective remains central to how they understand the situation. They see her story through the lens of lived experience, emotion, and the pressures that come with public life. This makes her narrative feel deeply human and relatable, even when opinions about it differ widely. Between these two viewpoints, many observers feel the truth is likely not found at either extreme. Instead, it may sit somewhere in the middle, shaped by complex experiences, misunderstandings, and moments that are not fully visible to the public. However, reaching that middle ground is difficult, especially when most of what people see comes from edited clips, headlines, and short online discussions. What becomes clear over time is that this is no longer a fixed story from the past. It is something alive in the present, constantly reshaped by social media, public attention, and selective interpretation. Each new comment or video can slightly change how the story is understood. In the end, as long as people continue to watch, replay, and debate, the narrative surrounding Meghan Markle and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, will keep evolving. It becomes less about a single version of truth and more about how different audiences choose to interpret the same moments. Ultimately, the strongest force shaping the story may not be any royal voice or official statement, but the audience itself, collectively deciding what the story means, one interpretation at a time. So what do you think about Sophie's comments on Meghan? Do you really think it was intended to go viral? We'd love to hear your opinions in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe.